Grand Rising. Welcome to Module 3 of One Tao Kung Fu Teacher Training. This module is focused on centering. So, of course, with all the modules of the One Tao training, the state and the Kung Fu, they're all encompassing and they all work and is fused as one, which is what we call the state. So centering. What is centering? Centering is the center of your physical body, but it's also the center of your energetic body, and it is consists of feeling, sensing, seeing energy or qi, and a concept called Tai Gong, which is the raising of the pelvic floor, the perineum, the anus upwards. There's other energetic concepts, I guess, the lifting of the perineum versus the lifting of the anus. So up through the spine being Kundalini, then up through the center channel. It's more about the chakras. So centering is essentially you take your spiritual intention or your highest intention, and that aligns you and guides you and points you in an upwards direction. And you obviously do that with your consciousness, your awareness, your mind. And how we do that in our Kung Fu is essentially from the earth to your tailbone, up to your crown of your head and to above your crown. You see a center line, a center, like a cylinder or a line, whatever essentially works for you to feel it not only in your physical body, but then as you progress, it becomes your sort of your energetic body more so than your physical body. And inside that center, you have what's called the center of mass, which is your center of your physical mass in which your body is centered around. And what Tai Gong essentially does as part of centering is called the waist linking. And that links the bottom half of your body to the top half of your body. And from a practical sense, it allows you to move as one mass as opposed to a broken movement. So instead of moving like that, you may move head first and then legs, or legs first and then body. But essentially, if you have Tai Gong, it is a raising up through the center and up through the crown, like you're being held from above with a string or something being pulled up, and your muscular system and everything is relaxed and hung off, kind of like a ham bone. So if you imagine a leg of ham, and you turn the meat side down and the bone sticking up, the meat just sort of flops down and sits on the table, whatever your surface you're keeping it on. And when you tip it up the other way and you put it on the bone, the meat hangs off the bone, and that's kind of, the bone represents your skeletal structure. And obviously the meat is the meat sack that we are. So that essentially is then risen. So it's a central column, and we sense that central column. So part of the sensing qi, when we go into our meditations or when we're in practice, we sense from the earth to the tail to above the crown, and we have an upward sensation, a rising, a grand rising. And Wing Chun, I believe it's called the eternal spring, like an eternal spring rising upwards. And that can also align with your breath as well. So breathing in, you rise; breathing out, you sink and let go. So there's sort of there's many concepts to it, but just trying to break it down and distill it. You've got feeling and sensing, which is the earth to the crown, and you've got seeing. So you see that line inside your body, and then you develop the expansion of that line. So it expands out, not just as a line, center line through here, going up, but it expands out through your body and expands out into your energetic self. And of course, in those two elements, you have the infusion of your highest intention. It's a really critical part, so that when you are sensing your inside center, it is the sensation, the vibration, and the frequency of your highest intention. So we always start our meditations with aligning with our highest intention, and that's a good feeling, whether it's a thought, place, feeling, person, whatever. Basically gives you a good vibe, feels good, puts a smile on your dial, and that feeling that is inside of you is what then infuses into your center. Taigong again is the raising of from the perineum up into the upper body, and it's called the waist link to connect it. It's not forced. It's not you're lifting it up like some Kundalini yoga practices or breathing practices. It's just a very gentle lifting in that area. And what that does is that unifies our structure. It provides a full body mass, so that it's you move with your full body, you strike with your full body, and when you take in force, it is translated down to the earth because your body is connected. It involves the legs, and it connects your energetic centers and energetic bodies to help move. And then there's also the connection to the field. So when centering, you connect to the prana, the life force, the quantum entanglement. But essentially, there's dark matter, there's light matter, whatever you want to call it. The scientific experiments now you can look up that with quantum entanglement and things connected. Essentially, you connect to that energetic field. So breath is consciousness. You're connecting to that. So from the center obviously the center contains your spiritual intention, your highest intention. It contains seeing energy, your chi. So you see your center line, you sense your center. With the seeing energy, you rise with the grand rising, both in a physical way. So there's a physical rising upwards, which then you move from a physical sensation to an energetic sensation. And the more you practice that, the more it becomes a way of being. So, you're walking along the street, you may trip over something, you won't fall down if you are rising, you are risen. Whereas if you're not, then you're more likely to fall over. So it's definitely there's a health benefit for as you grow older and your body gets older, for supporting your balance and uprightness, but also a rising of morals in a sense. With Dr. Hawkins's map of consciousness, as you rise through the levels of consciousness, it is also an upward lifting, and infusing that is a beautiful harmony of consciousness and martial practicality in the application of Kung Fu. And then obviously the eternal spring is the Kung Fu philosophy to it. So with centering, there's ways that you can practice this. So how do I know if I'm centering, right? So with all the practices in our Kung Fu, you can try it with muscle, you try it with force, with strength, and then you try it with structure, with bones, so rotation of joints and alignment of your bones and the movement of the bones, and then the element of the state that you are practicing, and in this case we're talking about centering as an element of the state. And then also you can practice it with the idea energy. So, a negative thought, negative idea, negative concept, versus a positive thought, positive idea, positive concept, and applying it to each one of those strength, structure, and state elements to notice the difference. And the goal, the end goal, is to maintain state, to be state, because you are state under pressure and 24/7 in every day, whether it's in your training, at home, or at work. It's the beingness of state. So with that said, there's different exercises that you can try. There's what I call the Taigong lift. So you get someone to wrap their arms around, try and pick you up. Without Taigong, it's a lot easier because it's essentially you're picking up the top half of the weight and the rest of it's following, like a sack of potatoes. Or then you try it with Taigong and it unifies the body. It makes it much harder to lift. There's no one here to do that, so feel free to try that with a partner, or check out, sure there's a video somewhere online about this. Then there's the waist bend. So you get a partner, one hand on your belly, one hand on your back, and try to bend you that way. And again, you try it without Taigong, with Taigong, or with centering, and then one with centering and spiritual intention, and just all the facets that I mentioned before, in order to experience and feel the variability of each of those, because it's all well and good for someone to say, hey, this is what you feel, try it with this, but you actually have to sense it, because it's the beingness, and the feedback of the beingness is what develops your skill, both spiritually and martially. The head press, so having someone press down. So generally you find, you got to be careful, and the word of warning, you're not trying to hurt your partner, you're not trying to inflict any damage, but you press down on that. And obviously if you're not thinking out, you probably collapse and push down. But if you're centering and sensing, you take the force coming in, and you I was just looking at my whiteboard for the notes. You center that, and if you use force, you'll tense up, and you'll feel that, and it'll be a strength element to it. But if you allow the stay in your state and center, and allow that weight to come in, it translates down through your structure. And that's a way then you could absorb the force down through the ground. So part of centering and force, and from a practical piece, it's absorption of force. But then the next step, that is that what we call Beifeng Lei, or Qigong we'll call Beifeng Lei, which is the rebounding, the expansiveness that rebounds force back before it even actually gets a chance to penetrate your being. There is then obviously movement, so you can practice this with movement, so muscle, structure, energy, from being centered, not centered, Taigong, not Taigong. You can test those facets. And then also in movement, it's about then your center then connecting to your opponent's center. And so when we connect to the opponent's center, we connect center to center. And the goal is to stay in our state and stay connected to their center. We do this with the center plane, but I think that'd probably be another topic. But it's the energetic center and physical center connected to your opponent's center, and then you have your touch point. So it could be Chi Sao, for example, or a Tan Sao, Bong Sao. So you're practicing a movement with a point of contact, and you're not focusing on the point of contact. You are focusing on your center connecting to the center, and not the point of contact. And what this allows you to do is then absorb force, and then also expand and give back. And then the concept evolves from there of for targeting. You can target, so if I'm targeting my head there, then it essentially is a cone that everything is pointed towards, funneled down the center lane to this point in a cone shape, because that's sort of the element of a straight lines from different angles and triangular points coming to one point, becoming a wedge or a point or a cone. But ideally, for centering, it is a prism. It is, your back's the flat part, and then you've got the triangles and the points, and that goes from above the crown all the way down to the center, and that then wedges into your opponent. So, for example, a way to practice that is the first part of the mukjong, going in and breaking into someone's guard or stance. And you can practice then the staying in the center, the translation of that force from the touch point, contact points down into the shoulders and down to the ground, but also then giving that the Beifan lei, the expansiveness, giving it back. And then different targets, so you can practice, you might have someone who's shorter or taller or laying on the ground or to the side of you, like if an opponent if a threat was coming in from the side, I may be facing the directing at the camera, but then my centre is actually targeted to point to there. So then when I turn my centre, and that moves into pivoting in Chum Kiu, when I turn my centre and then strike, my whole mass and targeting is targeted towards that opponent. The centre line is penetrating the angle in a prism, but the targeting is then also conical and targeted to a point in their body. And if you get really, really good at it, and you can target inside their center instead of through them, you target inside their center. You don't want to stop on the top. You want to stop inside of their center as we deliver their force, and that's the real kicker. If you've ever had the opportunity to have a phone book and a 1-inch punch, you can sense the difference between something stopping on your surface, something going through you, versus something stopping inside of you, and that sensation is very warming, to say the least. Different targets, prism, and then so you can obviously test that with arms, legs, bending over, how you use your center with your arms when you meet force, how you use your center if someone's holding your leg and you go to lift and move forward, and someone's you're bent over and someone holds your head, how the rising and the centering can be used from your center of mass, which is often starts off with like a beach ball size around your belly area, and we hone that down into a very, very small atom or marble or ball in somewhere around the belly area, depending on your physical structure. You might have more legs and more torso or something like that, but over time, by pivoting from your center, by turning from your center of mass, you find that spot and you hone it down so that all of your movements come from that center of mass inside of your center. And you develop that in forms of Chum Kiu, so pivoting and turning and turning with your center plane, and then Bilji, which is more the attacking part. So you might be over here and then the elbow comes over, but that's, I digress in some element and want to stay on track because I'm at 19 minutes on this one. So trying to wrap that up into key points. It's about absorption or expansion and not pushing. It's about expanding and not compressing. It's about your bones and not the meat, the muscular. So you center and expand, and that allows your bones and your skeletal structure to move as one. It's about releasing, sinking, and accepting releasing and sinking, and then awareness of the expansion in the energetic body. Some tips. So for training tips, you can pick one and focus on that for a while until you feel like you've got that idea. So in this case, Taigong, rising up through the center, and you can just practice that in your daily life while you're washing the dishes or taking out the trash or whatever. And then you do it with your forms, so your Sulam Tao, and then once you've done that, you can change it around to different parts of the state, elements to work on. But then what you can do is you can add parts. So you could go Taigong and Sulam Tao and then sinking, or however you wanted to adjust it. So with centering, it allows you to then sink all incoming force and then sink it down to the ground. Which is the initial part to it, and then the expansion part is when a force comes in, but it doesn't actually come in. You take it into your center, but then it gives back because of the expansiveness and the energetic state, basically repelling it. Bei Fan Lei, give back, I mentioned that before. Your bones don't feel force, so your skeletal structure, with sensing and Taigong, your skeletal structure is then aligned to allow that any force to come in to go down through the bones and into the ground. The muscles don't have to hold the bones up because you have a rising intention, and they don't have to fight to offset the balance, offset your balance of when force comes in, because you're not applying force and you're not fighting force with force. So that's about power and sinking and using no force in application. Another way you can do it is to tap the spine in different areas to help people become accustomed and sense that area deeper. From a teacher's point of view, you can project the line into their center to help them sense it, and you can guide them with seeing, sensing, chi words and guidance in that space. A key part too is when you're centering, is not to want, and this is applicable to all other facets of the state, is not to desire it, not to want it, because then force can come in negativity, or forceful emotions and feelings, or anything under the level of 200 on the map of consciousness. It is the condition over the position. So once you get in the position and you stay and you raise and you in your stance, but it's the condition that you want to develop. So for example, if you want to catch a fish, you get a cage, you catch the fish. Once you've caught the fish, you no longer need the cage. So the condition over the position, because whilst we train beautiful shapes and structure and movements as you progress through, it's essentially the state at the end means you could be standing on your head and have incredibly powerful footwork because you're in state. You also move from your center. So all movements, so you move. So if someone was holding your belly or holding your back, you're not moving like that. You're actually moving from the center of mass as one whole unit, prism penetrating, and going with your center plane. So essentially, centering, we go spiritual intention, highest intention. We center, earth, tail, crown to above the crown. We infuse that highest intention into our center, and then we rise with a ball of light from the base all the way up, and that's centering. and then we add syncing to that, seeing to that, and then some other cool stuff as well. But thanks for listening. Have a good one.